Vicky, did you get my message about the notice of the next meeting on the agenda?
Yes, we can correct that.
Okay.
Okay, Glenn is, just a moment. Yep, Glenn is on right now. So you want to go ahead and start?
Okay. My name is Scott Sterling. I'm the chair of the Hubbard Planning Commission, and I'd like to welcome you to the Planning Commission meeting for January. And if we can start with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now I'll turn over to Vicky for the swearing in of our new commissioner.
Okay, hi Phil, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, I'm gonna have you raise your right hand and repeat after me.
okay.
I state your name,
I, Phil Cartel,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
perform the duties of planning commissioner
perform the duties of a planning commissioner
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and of the state of Oregon,
and of state of Oregon.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome aboard.
Amen. First time in my life. Thank you, Becky. That was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you.
That was so awesome. Very
And
awesome.
now we need to appoint a chair.
So you need a motion or a nominate somebody and then have a motion.
Right. Do we have any nominations?
So what does the chair do?
They run the meetings.
Well, they run the meetings.
Yes.
Doesn't Vicky do that usually?
No, you guys appoint a planning commissioner to run the meeting as the chair.
Well, last 3 times I sat with Scott. Scott's doing a good job. So why wouldn't we nominate Scott?
That's up to the commission. Is that a nomination?
It is.
So then you're gonna need a motion. Somebody's gonna need to make a motion and a second.
I'll second the nomination.
So I heard a.
Glenn.
Okay. So we hear a second. So all those in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
all those opposed? Okay, looks like Scott is the chair again. So you can take it from there.
Okay. Now we need to appoint a vice chair. And I would like to nominate Glenn.
So is that a motion?
I second that motion.
So all of those in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
all those opposed? Okay, looks like Glenn is the vice chair.
All right. And do we have a motion to approve the August 17th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting minutes?
So moved, Glenn Holm.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Scott, you can take over anytime.
Okay. But first we need to vote on that motion, don't we?
Yes, you do.
So all in favor of approving the planning commission meeting for August 17th, 2021, say aye.
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 Thank you. And then next thing we have on our agenda is a public hearing, site development review number DR 2021-04 slash it's 4074 Pacific Highway 99E for Robert and Kelper Hardy for a change of occupancy to convert an existing house into a commercial office use. Okay, and then let me get to the sorry about this. Good evening. My name is Scott Sterling, and I'm the chair of the Hubbard Planning Commission, and will be presiding over this hearing. This is a time and place to set for public hearing in the matter of site development review filed DR 2021-03 development of a 6,210 square foot warehouse addition plus a 16,200 square foot gravel parking lot on a developed site for West Side Drywall. The hearing is now open and it is 6:42 p.m. Oregon land use law requires several items to be read into the record at the beginning of every public hearing. The city planner will review this material. Your patience is appreciated as she goes through these statements. Holly?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm a little concerned about my connection because I just got dropped. If I freeze, please raise your hand and I can shut off my video if that helps with the bandwidth here. For the record, my name is Holly Byram and I work for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I serve as the contract city planner for the city of Hubbard. I just have a short script here that needs to be read into the record. Thank you, Chair Steerley. The applicable substantive criteria upon which this case will be decided are found in the Hubbard Development Code 2.106C, Commercial Zone, 2.200 Development Standards, 3.105 Site Development Review, 3.110 Non-Conforming Uses. All testimony and evidence received in this public hearing must be directed toward these approval criteria or to such other rule, law, regulation, or policy which you believe to apply to this case. An issue which may be the basis for an appeal to the City Council or the Land Use Board of Appeals shall be raised not later than the close of the record at or following the final evidentiary hearing on this case. Such issue raised with and accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford this body parties to this hearing an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. This public hearing will proceed with the staff report and any other comments from governmental agencies that are in attendance, followed by the applicant and all those who are in support of the application. All of those opposed to the application will then be allowed to speak, followed by those with general comments who are neither for nor against the application. Finally, the applicant will be entitled to a rebuttal period. Please state your name, physical address, and mailing address clearly for the record before your comments. Please try to avoid repetition if someone else has already expressed the same thoughts. It's perfectly
You're frozen.
all right to of that. Please, everyone will have. I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll turn the video here for a moment. If you have documents that you wish to have considered by this body, they must be formally placed in the recording of this proceeding. To do that, either before or after you speak, please submit those to Vicki Noggle, who will make sure your evidence is properly taken care of. Prior to the conclusion of the first hearing on a land use application, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding this application. If such a request is made, it will be up to this body to determine if the hearing will be continued to a time and date certain, or if the record will be kept open for the submission of additional evidence.
With that out of the way, I need to ask the audience and fellow commissioners a few questions. Does any member of the audience have any objections to the notice that was published? Hearing none. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest or bias? Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to report any site visit or ex parte contacts? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the impartiality or ex parte disclosures of any member of the Planning Commission? City Planner Holly Byram, please give the staff report.
Okay, let's see if I can share. Vicki, would it be okay if I shared the staff report on the screen?
Sure.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I gotta give you the rights to do that. Okay, you should be good to go.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, so can everyone see the staff report here on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let's try that one more time. Okay. For file number DR 2021-04, and this is a public hearing for a site development review. My name is Holly Byram, and I work for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. This site development review is a fairly straightforward one. We haven't actually seen that many like it, but I expect that over the years to come, you will. And so this project is proposing to convert an existing house into a commercial office building. This is a house that's existed since the 1930s. And since that time, the city has come in and zoned this strip of land commercial. And so now they're converting it to a commercial use. It's a fairly straightforward review here. Again, this is a property at 4074 Pacific Highway 99E. Going to get into the staff report here. So to refresh your memory, a site development review is a type 2 application, which means that after the public hearing, the Planning Commission will make the final decision on this request. A little bit of background on the house we're talking about tonight is on of 3 parcels that were last reviewed by city in 2006. And so that was with city file number 06-04. And at that time, the proposal was for the drywall facility that's there currently. And so that was a drywall warehouse and office. This house was not proposed for use. However, it does share stormwater facility and parking lot. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Board included a snapshot of the property. You'll note the properties around this one pretty big area. So this property is zoned commercial, but on a couple sides of it, you have the manufactured home district, which is a residential district. Across the street, you have the industrial district, and as well as the residential commercial. So it's a pretty big mix along the 99 corridor here. Here's parcel 1 is included in that yellow box there. The house is here. So the house shares driveway onto 99E, as well as a drive onto Parkway Boulevard. The house has 12 paved parking spots on parcel 1 behind the house there. Here's a street view. These are kind of outdated these are from Google Street View. I think one's from 2019 and one's from 2013. You get a feeling for what it looks like. So the applicant is proposing to do a remodel to the inside and outside of this house, but they're proposing and the house is about 1,500 square feet. And this is the 2006 site plan. So the red boxes, again, just no changes are proposed to parcel 2 or 3. So just to refresh me, when the planning decision about a site development review, there are certain criteria they need to consider, and those are in the Hubbard Development Code section 3.105. What I've done here is I've included some notes about why this was required to go through a land use review. Section review when a remodel exceeds 25% of an existing building, and or there's a change of occupancy that intensifies the use of the property. And by intensify, the use is coming to that property. The office would have more trips probably than a single family dwelling, depending upon the size, of course. In your code, you have the ability to grandfather non-conforming uses. So this house was built in the 1930s. In fact, your code says you're allowed to stay in this zone as long as you're in use, you're grandfathered in. However, in this case, this house hasn't been used for residential use for over a decade, is what the applicant said. So it's no longer grandfathered in. That needs to be converted to a commercial use. Marion County Building Department commented on this proposal, and they confirmed that the applicant would need to use structural permit. And that just confirms that they would have the inspections for this type of an applicant would be required to make some improvements through ADA. Here we get into the different criteria that you consider in a site development review. The first one is the characteristics of adjoining and surrounding uses. And that essentially ensures that what's being proposed is compatible with the properties around it. In this case, it's an existing structure, and this property is zoned for commercial development. The landscaping minimum is already met. Significant changes proposed to that at this time. So no concerns there. B is about drainage and erosion control needs. There's no new impervious surface proposed with this development. The house is existing, all the pavements exist, the stormwater facility. Staff's only concern here is that there's no easement on that stormwater facility. So right now, all three of the parcels are owned by the same owner. However, in the future, one or more could be sold off. So in this case, we're going to need to see an easement that basically says that those other parcels will maintain their right to use that storm facility. That's included as a condition of approval. Is about public health factors, and that just refers to having public water and sewer connections, which is required in the city limits. There are options on the site. The applicant doesn't need to upsize those, and Public Works doesn't have any concerns about their ability to serve this property. D is about traffic safety, internal circulation, and parking. So the Hub Development Code has a ratio about how much off-street parking an applicant needs, and that's based upon the use of the property. In this case, on parcel 1, the use is a 1,500 square foot office, and the ratio is 1 space per 200 square feet. So that would be about 8 parking spaces. There are currently 12. We also ran the analysis for parcels 2 and 3 to make sure we wouldn't be shorting the drywall business of any parking spaces. And they are well over required spaces, and they have 25. So there's no concerns about sufficient parking. The office does already have 1 ADA parking space with a loading zone. It says that bicycles are allowed to be parked in the adjacent warehouse. However, there is a recommendation that they install a bike rack next to the office building. This office, it may or may not be appropriate to be taking customers' bikes into a different business warehouse. So that's a pretty simple condition of approval there. The standard is just 2 parking spaces, so that can just be 1 bike rack. It's double-sided. So this section of code also requires frontage improvements. So that's things, streets, curbs, sites. In this case, frontage improvements on both the Highway 99 and Park Boulevard side of this property. So no additional frontage improvements are required here. We did note that the right-of-way is not wide enough here at this section of 99. And this is pretty common with the last few site development reviews that the city has done along 99. You'll remember that your system plan, your TSP, classifies 99 as a major arterial, and that it should be 101 feet. This is 80 feet wide. The assumption is that in the future, as those properties along the corridor develop, the properties would dedicate 10 feet of frontage to the public right-of-way on each side of the corridor. It's a long, slow process, and in this case, it's been happening as they develop. So in this case, again, the staff recommendation is a 10-foot right-of-way dedication along just parcel 1. It didn't seem proportional to required along parcel 2 as well, because no changes are proposed for that parcel. E is about provision for adequate noise and visual buffering from non-compatible uses. Again, in this case, the buildings are existing. There is adjacent residential uses, however, the warehouse is between the office and the residential, and so that boundary is not changing. There's no existing natural features on site other than the mature trees. The applicant reported that they lost some trees and shrubs during recent winter storms, so some of those may be replaced. G is about connectivity of internal circulation, and this is for pedestrians and bikes. And what your standard requires is that pedestrians can access from the public sidewalk to a business. In this case, there is a walkway, a pedestrian walkway on the Parkway Boulevard side. However, it routes up some stairs to get up to grade of the office building. And so in this case, it's not ADA accessible. And so staff's recommendation is for there to be a pedestrian pathway from the 99 frontage to the front of the office building. There was actually one shown on the site plan proposed in 2006, but it looks like maybe it was never constructed. And so that's the staff recommendation, is to improve the pedestrian access right from 99 to the office. And then H is about any problems that may arise with potential hazard areas. No significant concerns here other than drainage is always a concern, but the existing stormwater facility on site appears to be working. There's no concerns from Public Works about its capacity or function. So in conclusion, staff recommends approval of this proposal. As with all land use approvals, there are recommended conditions of approval, and those are found on page 9 and 10 of the staff report. There's a couple fairly standard conditions of approval here, simply stating that the cost of these improvements are the obligation of the property owner. Building permits are issued through Marion County in partnership with the City of Hubbard, and City Hall can walk the applicant through that process. So condition E is that frontage dedication that was mentioned. Condition F is the stormwater easement. Again, that's to ensure that all 3 parcels have an access to that stormwater facility and an obligation to maintain that cooperative. G is about reciprocal driveway and parking easement. Again, just like the stormwater easement that says if any one of these properties sells, there's going to be that ongoing easement that allows cars to come and go through either driveway. That could even be the same document, the shared parking and stormwater. Condition I is about the bicycle parking. Condition J is about pedestrian access. I included condition K in here about screening, and that is the standard condition that if they have a garbage dumpster or garbage cans, that screening is provided. That wasn't mentioned on the site plan, and I suspect the applicant can give us those details. Okay,
Well, Holly,
so at the
yeah.
bottom of page, yes,
after you were talking about K, I believe it was, you went silent. So,
okay. Or perhaps I can explain for garbage and recycling dumpsters.
Yeah. okay.
Moment when they opportunity. So what are the plan commission options? Staff recommendation is A, which is a motion to approve the verbiage to adopt the recommended findings and conditions of approval. Attached to the staff report, I've included the full application pack applicant. That staff report are from the commission.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff or from the planning commission before we continue and accept public testimony? Okay. Hearing none. I will now accept public testimony regarding this case. Would the applicant or their representative like to speak?
There we go. Hello. Yeah, my name's Robert Harden, 10883 Southwest Maryland Street in Tualatin. And I don't have anything to add, but if you have questions, I'm here.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of the applicant? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone that would like to speak neither for nor against the application, neutral? Would the planning commission like to address the would like the applicant to address any of the testimony? So. Before I close or continue the public hearing, are there any additional questions from the planning commission or staff or anyone? As a reminder, once I close the hearing, only commissioners or staff may speak. Okay, not hearing any. The public testimony is now over. I will close the public hearing at 7:06 p.m. I will now entertain discussion on the application or a motion.
I move to approve, but it seems like it's pretty straightforward. The application's clean and they're gonna get permits. It's been there forever. I drive by it every day, so I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Glenn Holm.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's approved. So let's see if there's anything else.
Excuse me, Chair Steerley,
Yes,
can I clarify or confirm that the motion included the recommended conditions of approval as well?
I thought that was part of A. So Glenn, would
Yes.
you like to amend the motion to do the accepted recommendations?
The motion was made by Phil.
I wasn't the maker of the motion.
Oh, sorry. Phil, would you like to amend the motion to
Yes,
Except
I would
the-
like to amend the motion and approve with the city or with the city
recommendations?
recommendations that were brought up in the report.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll probably need to vote again on that, right, Holly?
Please.
All in favor of the motion to approve with the
The conditions.
recommendations? All in
Aye.
favor, say aye.
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 Sounds
Thank
like it's approved. Okay,
Thank you.
and looks like this is the last thing we have, so do I have a motion for adjournment?
No, we have another hearing.
Oh, we do? Sorry, I didn't see that.
Yes, we do.
Sorry, Okay, what's? Because
It's site development review, DR 2021-03 2755 Pacific Highway 99E.
okay,
that
sorry, I thought they were the same ones. That's why I didn't see that. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So site, we've got a public hearing for a site development review of DR 2021-03 2755 Pacific Highway 99E for Michael Wellman for West Side Drywall and
Mhm.
Misha Salem Abequa Investments for development of a new 6,210 square foot warehouse. And then I have to go back to,
The back of your packet there, Scott, is the public hearing script for this
Right.
public hearing.
right, and that's what I was going back to.
Okay, perfect.
Point of order. That script that was read, was that the correct script that was read? As it relates to the first hearing we just voted on?
No, there's two different scripts.
I know, but the previous script that was read, did that match correctly? I'm just trying to keep us out of compliance issues. I thought the script that was read was the one that should go with this one.
If that's the case, it was my mistake and I'm sorry about that.
If it's not a big deal, it's fine with me. I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't jeopardize the hearing, so.
Holly, did you want to comment on that?
Did Commissioner Holland, did you hear the wrong address in that prior script?
Yes.
I'd have to go back, but I thought what he read was, because I even make a notes here, and maybe he did read the right script. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear, so it didn't jeopardize the validity of the ruling. So, but that's okay.
I appreciate your sharp ear on that. If the script were read incorrectly, in my staff report, I did state the address and the criteria that applied, so I think we would still be okay.
Perfect.
For
The
this one,
findings-
we'll be
the
sure to
findings- I was
read
gonna
the
say,
right
findings-
script.
The findings you were projecting were absolutely right on. I just didn't know if that script made any difference. So,
Right. Thank you. Good question.
Okay. So, good evening. My name is Scott Sterling. I'm the chair of the Hubbard Planning Commission. I will be presiding over this hearing. This is the time and place set for the public hearing in the matter of site development review 2021-03 development of a 6,210 square foot warehouse plus 6,200 square foot gravel parking lot development for West Side Drywall. The hearing is now open and it is 7:14 p.m. Oregon land use laws require several items to be read into the public record at the beginning of every public hearing. The city planner will review this material. Your patience is appreciated as she goes through these statements. Holly, I'll give it to you now.
Thank you. I apologize when you do these again. Might sound familiar. The substantive criteria upon which this case will be decided are found in the Hubbard Development Code. And this is the section that would be different from the prior script. 2.108 IC Industrial Commercial Zone, Section 2.200 General Development Standards, and Section 3.105 Site Development Review. All testimony and evidence received during the hearing must be directed toward these approval criteria or to such other rule, law, regulation, or policy which you believe to apply to this case. An issue which may be the basis for an appeal to the City Council or the Land Use Board of Appeals shall be raised not later than the close of the record at or following the final evidentiary hearing on this case. Such issue shall be raised with and accompanied by statements sufficient to afford this body and the parties to this hearing an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. This public hearing will proceed with the staff report, the other comments from governmental agencies that are in attendance, followed by the applicant and all those who are in support of the application. All of those opposed to the application will then be allowed to speak, followed by those with general comments who are neither for nor against the application. Finally, the applicant will be entitled to a rebuttal period. Please state your name, physical address, and mailing address clearly for the record before your comments. Please try to avoid repetition if someone else has already expressed the same thoughts. It's perfectly all right to state that you agree with the statement of that previous speaker. Please be assured that everyone will have an opportunity to speak. If you have documents, maps, or letters that you wish to have considered by this body, they must be formally placed in the record of this proceeding. To do that, either before or after you speak, please submit the material to Vicki Noggle, who will make sure your evidence is properly taken care of. Prior to the conclusion of the first hearing on a land use application, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, it will be up to this body to determine if the hearing will be continued with time and date certain, or if the record will be kept open for submission of additional evidence. Thank you.
With that out of the way, I need to ask the audience and fellow commissioners a few questions. Does any member of the audience have any objection to the notice that was published? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission and to hear this matter? Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest or bias? Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to report any site visit or ex parte contact? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the impartiality or ex parte disclosure of any member of the Planning Commission? City Planner Holly Byram, please give your staff report.
Okay, I'll share a screen again here. Can everyone see the staff report okay? Okay. Okay, this is our public hearing of the night. This is for file number DR 2021-03, and this is for the business Westside Drywall. They are being represented by architect Michael Wellman. If I pause, please let me know. 755 Pacific Highway 99E in Hubbard. This I see commercial. It's a large property, 4.42 acres. It is mostly developed at this time. They have 2 warehouse office buildings and a paved parking area. And they do have a stormwater facility on site as well as landscaping. Similar to our last public hearing application. So tonight, the public, there's quite a bit of property. I'll try to give a brief synopsis here. The original development was approved in 1998, 1999. There were also land use reviews in 2000 and 2003. And so over time, they have added buildings. They had a plan for the full property to be built out eventually. And so at this time, the proposal is simply to expand one of their existing warehouses. The warehouse is currently 5,040 square feet, and they are adding an additional 6,200. That warehouse is referred to as the West Warehouse. Also included in the scope of this review is a parking lot, 16,200 square feet. And this is kind of a parking lot that's evolved over time. It wasn't approved with the last land use review, but somewhere between 6 to 8 years ago, it started being used by the business. And our goal, support local businesses and help them get to their approval that they need. In this case, we're including that parking lot in the scope of review because it wasn't reviewed previously. Here's a map of the property vicinity. It's located along the south end of the 99 corridor. So properties in that area are zoned for industrial and industrial commercial use. Here's an aerial of the property. Coming in from 99, you have the 2 office buildings up front. You have the north warehouse here, and then over here on the far west side of the property is the existing warehouse that will be expanded to the north. At the very southern end of the image there, you'll see we butt up against Little Bear Creek, and that is where they have their stormwater facility down there in the riparian corridor. You'll see some riparian vegetation as well. And the parking lot that we're talking about, can you see my cursor? Yeah, okay. The parking lot that we're talking about is in the southern part of the property here. And so over the last few years, we have aerial imagery that shows during the daytime, employees park here, and then at nighttime, the company vehicles are here. So it's the vans and the trucks that go out to the job sites during the day. So it's the constant flow of coming and going here. So here is the proposed development, and this is on page 3 of 15, just the blue arrows indicating, again, the warehouse addition and the parking lot. Cropped to zoom in here. Okay. Same criteria as before. This, the criteria that you need to consider this evening comes from section 3.105, and this is for site development reviews. In this case, what triggered the land use review was a building expansion that exceeded 25% of the total square footage, and also the intensification of the property use through the parking lot. This was the last site plan that we had, and this was from 2005, I believe. So they show the footprints of existing warehouses on here. So they're adding, again, one building at a time here. This is a 2007 Google Earth image. This is looking at it from the northeast, and the white arrow is indicating that large grassy area that is now the parking lot. So we know that that parking lot started sometime after 2007. Okay, so back to our criteria. The first one, again, A, characteristics of adjoining and surrounding uses. This is when we consider the properties around the development. No concerns here with compatibility. Again, the property is mostly built out already. The setbacks are met for the industrial commercial zone. The building meets the height limit. The property meets the landscaping minimum requirements. There's no significant changes to lighting or signage proposed. So no real concerns there. I should note that the outside of the 50-foot riparian buffer along Little Bear Creek. Control. There is an existing stormwater detention facility on the site. Did I freeze for a moment there? Okay.
Yes.
So there is an existing stormwater facility on the site. We don't know how much of the development was reviewed for that facility. We don't have a copy of the drainage plan for that. And that is something the city engineer needs to see. Because they're adding additional impervious surface through the building and the parking lot, we need to be sure that that stormwater facility especially there.
Holly, you disappeared after stormwater.
Okay. So to confirm, the city engineer needs to see that shows the existing stormwater facility has the capacity to meet the additional impervious surface. So that plan already exists. It was done in the past, but we don't have a copy of it. We just need to see the old plan to confirm. Criteria C is public health. This is again about public utility connections to water and sewer, service connections on site. Public works did not have concerns about the capacity of this business. Criteria D about traffic safety, circulation, and so this section of code that talks about parking lots. Just a quick table here, show how the parking
Not hearing you.
Hear me now?
Now, yeah.
Okay. Let's stop this. Can you still see my screen?
Off and on.
So page 8 now with the parking table. Thing is calculated based upon the land uses on the site. That's the total where this is there to sufficient. I've included aerial imagery that was taken recently, 2020, some weeks presumably. This shows a new site searching pattern on site with arrows. So there are directional traffic arrows now coming in the driveway and then routing traffic left through the gravel parking lot, one way down through the paved area. Just to confirm that in this next section of the staff report, starting on page 10, does require that all driveways, parking, and maneuvering areas have a durable hard surface. For what that means in industrial development is an asphalt over 6-inch aggregate base. And so in this case, there's a staff recommendation for the applicant to pave the parking lot because it's used for parking and is used full time. In terms of bicycle parking, that standard appears to be met by the existing buildings potentially. Can you hear me still? Okay.
Off and on.
Okay. There is a recommendation for 2 additional bike parking spaces. The frontage along Pacific Highway 99E is fully developed. Improvements are recommended. Similar view, this section of 99E is 80 feet wide, and the transportation system plan said be as a major arterial 100. So again, the staff recommendation here, just as with the last file, is for that 10-foot property dedicated for the long-term goal of staff commented they didn't have any proposed development. Criteria E is about adequate noise and visual buffering. This section of code is found in the Hubbard Development Code 2.0. And these standards do require screening around dumpsters and also large parking lots. The metric that's used here is 30 vehicles or more for an industrial use. So in this case, staff is recommending screening along the southern boundary of the parking lot because of that 30 vehicle guideline. If it's not already, it may be enclosed. Criteria F is about the retention of existing natural features on site. This site does abut Little Bear Creek and this riparian vegetation. No changes are proposed to that riparian corridor or to any of the mature trees on site. So there are no concerns with that. Criteria G is about connectivity of internal to pedestrian and bicycle facilities on the public street. In this case, similar to the last application, there's a gap for pedestrian access between the public sidewalk and the walkway leading into the office building in the front. The recommendation is for the applicant to continue a sidewalk that's there along the front parking spaces to meet up with the public sidewalk to provide safe pedestrian access to the site. And then no significant hazard areas. So once again, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve this. At the bottom of page 12, you'll see the recommended conditions of approval. Several standard. Condition E is about the frontage dedication. Condition F is about stormwater, and that is for the applicant to provide the drainage report to confirm that the stormwater facility has sufficient capacity to accommodate the building addition and parking lot. Condition H is about the parking lot that should be paved to standards. Condition I is about bicycle parking, simply to install one bicycle rack that has the 2 bicycle parking spaces. Condition J is about safe pedestrian access to the public sidewalk. Condition K is about wheel stops and the condition of approval parking lots. And then M is about screening, and that's simply screening the dumpsters if it's not already, as well as the southern boundary of the new area or landscaping. And then the recommended, or the commissioner are bottom of page 14. I'm happy to answer questions from the commission before I stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Holly. Are there any questions from staff or planning commission before we continue and accept public testimony?
I didn't have question, or I just wanted to make a comment that the applicant did submit 2 pictures of the parking lot, and I did email those to you, and I've also uploaded those onto the city's website.
Thank you, Vicky. I will now accept public testimony regarding this case. Would the applicant or the representative like to speak?
Would that be me? This is Mike Wellman, architect. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, I've never done one of these before, so bear with me. It's not my first choice of testimony, as you guys would probably agree to. Manny Rodriguez is also here, which is the owner's representative, and he'll speak too. My address is 113 South First Silverton, and mailing address is 1288, PO Box 1288 in Silverton. Most of this is pretty minor. The biggest thing that we see, that I've seen, is the parking lot issue, which is a huge, expansive issue here. And when we were reading your zoning code about parking lots, it says when areas are parked, construction vehicle parking and machinery, etc. Well, it's pretty clear from the pictures that Manny sent, this is parking for construction vehicles, not for employees. Yes, they come and they get in their vehicles and leave, but they're not there. It's a parking lot for construction vehicles. The parking that's provided on site is paved, and it's all per code, per the ratios of the office and the warehouse, et cetera, et cetera. So that all has been approved in the past and it's followed. So the problem here is this parking lot, which we don't feel by your own code says that you're allowed to park commercial vehicles there on gravel. So if that's the case, then the stormwater issue is a mute issue because we're adding no impervious surfaces to the project. Also, the original design for the stormwater was based on that 2005 drawing that you have on future warehouses, which are all impervious surfaces. Most of those didn't, some of them didn't get built. So the design was built off of that impervious surface, which was submitted to the city of Hubbard, which it sounds like you don't have any of that documentation, which is unfortunate because we don't have it either. But we're convinced that if you look at the size of the retention area, it's huge in relationship to what's there. So bottom line is we're just concerned about this parking. It's a huge expense and it serves no purpose. The arrows that are indicated on the site plan is for trucks, semi-trucks coming through so that they don't go in front of the warehouses. They can make a circle and unload themselves. It's just it's an easier for truck transportation to circle around and get out of there. So the right of way, the screening actually shouldn't be an issue. The whole property is fenced, and we don't think we need to screen this commercial parking area. Also, there are wheel stops on that area, so that's met too. So I think the biggest concern is this parking area, and it's going to cost more than the building, and we don't feel that it's appropriate to do that. Now, Manny may have some other things he wants to bring up, but that's probably the biggest thing we have a problem with this application or review. Thank you.
Okay. And you said he was there with you?
Manny, are you here? I think he is. Yeah, this is Manny. Manny, you got to unmute. This is Manny. Come on, Manny. Manny, can you respond?
Can you hear me now?
There we go. All right.
Sorry about
Thank
that. Yeah. Yes, my name is Manny Rodriguez. My address is 15700 Southwest Division, Beaverton, Oregon, 97007. And I've been with Westside Drywall for 26 years. And I was part of that original development. I was the project manager / superintendent on that development. So I'm pretty familiar with it. And yes, the storm, that detention pond was designed for all future buildings in mind. And so at the time we did provide as-bills to the city back in '98. It's possible we may be able to find those. I looked and couldn't find them, but my guess is the city has them already. And if the city doesn't have them, hopefully there's a way we can get it. But I'm fairly certain we built that thing, put it in with all of the other buildings in mind. As far as that gravel parking, I sent you a couple of photos. We park our company vehicles there. We've got over 58,000 square feet of asphalt right now, and we really don't want to add any more. That particular driveway, if you look at that site plan with the future buildings, it actually runs right through where we had like maybe an 18,000 square foot building, as future. So between that large existing warehouse now and that area we're using for parking, there is a good chunk of grass there that you'll see on your aerial view. So it doesn't take up all of that area, just some of it. The rest of the recommendations we're comfortable with. We could add a little walkway there from the existing sidewalk to the sidewalk in front of the office, the screening, the bicycle. We've got a nice little courtyard right between two offices that we could add some bicycle parking there. So I think it's just that parking is the one we're hoping that the Planning Commission doesn't include or doesn't adopt as far as the recommendations. And thank you. Yeah, I'll take any questions if you have them.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone that would like to speak neither for nor against the application or neutral? Would the Planning Commission like the applicant to address any of the testimony?
I would. So the parking lot you guys have now, the one you proposed, where the pavement is that existing now?
The parking lot we have now,
Right, is this where where recommendations are for paving? Is it parking lot now?
it is, yeah. It's the, if you can look at the photos I sent this morning, they show a bunch of little vans, little service vehicles all parked there. You see that's gravel. That's that area where it says gravel parking for construction vehicles there on the south side of our property. It shows like 38 or so little stalls there. That's all
Right.
gravel right there. But everything else you see from the highway all the way back to that proposed warehouse addition, that's already paved, and it has been for a long time.
So are they marked now on the gravel, the parking spaces?
Are they marked on the gravel?
Right, you have lines here showing parking spaces. Are they marked on the gravel, or how do you guys separate them?
There's those bumpers. Those bumpers are kind of what identifies. Did you get that photo? The photo that shows the gravel lot?
I have not.
Oh,
We have not. Well, I have an existing one from 2007 that Holly brought up earlier in the report.
Bill,
Um,
I put some links into the chat box of the two photos that were uploaded to the website.
Okay.
If
All
you
right.
click on those, you should be able to see them.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that would help. That area, our fleet's grown over the years, and so we have to have a place to put them.
Yeah.
But we do have enough parking for all the people that work on site. We have more than we're required to. These people that use these vehicles don't work they don't work on site. They work on construction sites. So they just come, they get in their construction vehicle and they drive to work, and then they come back in the afternoon and park them and go home.
Yeah. Okay. So that's I saw the pictures. I saw you have something that, well, and the head of it, you have the parking stops or whatever they call them on every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
What are they called?
Bumpers.
Bumpers. There you go. Bumpers. Yeah. So can I ask Holly why we would want something paved that's existing at this point? Holly?
Oh, you're muted.
She's gone.
Well, if I could chime in, if you can hear me, I argued with Holly that this was construction and she just went strictly by your code and her interpretation is different than our interpretation. So we disagree on what she came up with, even though your code says specifically construction vehicles. So she was taking the cautious route.
I'm back.
Hi, Holly.
Can you hear me okay? Hi.
Yes.
I'm gonna pull up the code here. Okay. Sure. This is
Holly, we can't hear you.
exclusive.
Still can't hear you, Holly. Holly, we can't hear you.
She's gone. She's not back. She's not on her
Okay.
on her screen anymore. All right, she's back now.
Can you hear me now?
Barely, yeah.
Okay, apologies. What I have pulled up on the screen to answer the commissioner's question, the paving of parking and driveways. And this includes loading and maneuvering areas. There is a provision that allows for areas adjacent parts that's used for storage to be when you're storing materials and supplies and construction vehicles and machinery and products, but it's not intended to be parking lots and driveways where you have large trucks circulating throughout the day. And so this is the code that is included in the staff report. Is that helpful?
It is at this point.
Okay.
I'm just gonna look at something here.
Well, I'd still, if I can interrupt here a little bit, I'm reading the same thing and it says areas adjacent parking lots used exclusively for et cetera, construction vehicles. You know, the trucks don't really have to drive through this gravel area. They could go around. It was just more convenient to put the arrows to get the circulation better. So it's just a matter of semantics and trying to be, I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to impose this kind of cost just to park some vans on. So I again disagree with Holly's interpretation of this. It could go either way, but I think common sense and the pictures showing construction vehicles parking adjacent to required parking is pretty sufficient.
So Holly, Mr. Wellman is bringing up construction vehicles and they park there, they drive through, they're there and then they go to work, or sometimes they stay there. Is that not the same thing in your mind? Or a parking lot is a parking lot and construction vehicles sitting in a gravel parking area or is not that the same criteria for what we're talking about, a construction company's gravel area? Is that not the same thing in your mind?
I floated this question to several other city staff members, and we looked at aerial photos from the last 6 to 8 years, and every aerial photo showed staff parking, the employee vehicles parking there during the day. And if that weren't the case, then I would understand why it would maybe be considered a storage area. But during the day, all day, it's a parking lot. And I think that's why several staff members agreed that this was the appropriate interpretation for this parking lot that was not approved with the last land use approval.
I'm sorry, Holly, but your photos aren't taken after hours when there are construction vehicles here. You're totally misinterpreting what you're seeing. So again, planning commission members, you can pretty well clearly see what this is used for. And she's trying to make it into something that it really is not. They provided all the required parking on pavement, and this is not required parking, it's construction vehicle parking. So please try to understand what we're talking about here. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, during the day it looks like employee parking, and technically it is, but they aren't people that work on site. So you really need to look at the reality of this situation and look at your code, and construction vehicles is clearly there. I'm sorry, but that's my interpretation, and I think it's the right one.
Okay, let me intervene here. I'm Mike Krebs. I'm the superintendent of Public Works. And I agree with what Holly says, because by your own admission just a minute ago, you're talking about having that as employee parking during the day and construction parking at night when everybody goes home. Plus, what I've seen as I've watched that area is that parking area is being used during business hours as more of a parking lot than a storage area. So I agree with what Holly has and the rest of our staff has come up with, that that's more of a parking area than it is a storage area.
Nobody's arguing that. It's construction vehicle parking.
And employee parking during the day.
But
Well,
they're not. Oh,
They're
okay.
not, they, let me, yes, we have a fleet of about 145. And so some of our people drive directly to the job site, and some of them go to, they drive directly to the job site in their personal vehicles. They don't have a company vehicle. Many of our employees have a company vehicle, and we like them to be at our shop, at night. We don't want them taking them home. So they drive there, they park their car, they get in the company vehicle, they go work at 3:30, 4:30, whenever they get back, they get in their cars and they go home. So it's not like those people are working on site. So for people that work on site, yes, we have adequate paved parking, more than enough. But those vehicles, they leave in the morning, they come back in the evening. And so it's not our staff that's using that. If you go on site, it's pretty, like Michael said, if you go there anytime, you guys go there all the time. You go there at 5 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock or 7 or Saturday and Sunday, you can see what's there. It's all company vehicles, we got to have somewhere to put them, and that's where we put them.
Manny, you just said they're not your staff, but they're your employees. So really they are your staff when they park in that parking lot.
Oh, well, I may have misspoken. They're all employees, but
Yeah,
the staff that work in those office buildings that are there all day, they all have paved parking.
right, in
Okay.
front, yeah, in front of where the office buildings are at, I
In front
assume.
of the office buildings, and also in addition to that, we have it all the way in front of that big warehouse. There's a bunch of parking there that you can see on your photos as well. And so for people that work on site, that their work is like in the office, they're estimators, they're all the people that work there, they have adequate paved parking. So that's it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people that come to work in the morning, get in a company vehicle, go work all day, come back, park that company vehicle, get in their vehicle and go home. So
Yeah. No, I would agree with Holly on this one, because it's your staff, your employees, however you want to cut it. And they park there, it's a parking lot, and everybody else has to abide by the same code that the city, we have to go across the board, and it's parking, it's a parking lot. Just by the bumpers set up there, it says it's a parking lot, so just common sense. And the construction vehicles are, I guess there's a small difference, tomato, right? Construction vehicle or employee vehicle. So, and Holly has defined that as is your employees parking there. So,
well,
to me, that's the difference.
All over Hubbard, there's countless businesses that park on gravel everywhere. So
Manny, name one that has been developed the last 10 years.
One that's been developed in the last 10 years. Well, we were developed years ago.
Right. Well, it's 16, so that's what, almost 18, 19 years ago. So, basically we all have to stick, I did the same thing here in 2000s. They made me do my parking lot here, and I actually almost went to jail. And thank God for Vicky. She just made me pay a fine through the judge. I forget her name now. Zernoff. How can I forget that name? But we all have to follow kind of the same idea. I have, if it's a parking lot, it's a parking lot. I don't want to beat you guys up. I'm a businessman myself, and I see what you guys are saying, but it's common sense. If you guys are parking rigs there, it's a parking lot, and the city has a code that it has to adhere to. Try to tell me something different, I'll listen, but I just don't see it at this point.
Yeah, well, what could you tell us what we need to do to make that to where it complies with the allowable gravel parking? I mean, what would satisfy that? What do we need to do to where we can still park on gravel? Because it's allowed to park on gravel. I mean, is there something like
that's a great question, Manny. Holly, so if let's just say now that let's say they don't build a building, right? They don't do anything, they leave it alone. It's still a gravel parking lot. Is there any way that they can leave that there? Is there any kind of, is any kind of rule, I guess is the best way I could ask.
With or without the building?
If they did, well, no, if they did put the building in, but let's just say, well, now they have a gravel parking lot, right? So if they don't do anything, it still stays as a gravel parking lot. So is there a way for them to leave that parking lot there and not spend the money? And because it's been working for years, since 06 or at least past 07, I think it is, right? The last picture they took with the parking lot there. Is there any kind of, is there anything that they can do to get around paving that parking lot?
I think typically the city would look into a code enforcement letter, simply because, hey, we've noticed this is a parking lot. It wasn't permitted as such. Please bring your property into compliance. The reason that we do this, the paving, is to control stormwater for stormwater quality. The city has and quality metrics that they need to permit.
Can anybody hear her? I can't.
No, I couldn't. I can't.
More than I. Can you hear me now?
Go ahead and start over, because literally I could not hear one thing that you said earlier. Sorry. I try to catch a couple of.
Sure.
Anyway, if you,
can you hear me now?
yes, now clearly.
Right. The reason that the city has paving and stormwater standards primarily is for stormwater quality. I think Mike Krebs could speak to this, but he has storm permits that need to be observed when it comes to the stormwater quality and quantity, and paving parking lots and controlling stormwater leads into that.
Holly, got a question though. If they were to say that the people that come for the construction vehicles could no longer park in that parking spot, but would have to park on the paid parking spot, would that solve the problem?
Unfortunately, there's still a large unpermitted gravel parking lot on the site. But your question is, do they have capacity on their paved sites for all of their employees that park there during the day? I don't know the answer. Manny may be able to answer that question.
So Holly, let me ask you again. So the parking lot is not permitted at this point?
Correct. The gravel parking lot was never reviewed. It's an unpermitted parking lot.
Oh, well, then it's game over in my mind. And if it was never done through the planning commission, so it's a moot point. Yeah, there, no doubt in my mind that you guys gotta, well, you've submitted now. Just do the improvements and move on. You're gonna have to spend some money. Sorry, guys, I'm on your side, but we all have to follow the code. And if it's not permitted, I mean, it's, in my mind, it's game over.
Well,
Mike,
would someone to park on gravel, is that something people do? They come in and get a permit to park on gravel? I wasn't aware of that. That law kind of evolved. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over many years, and we never thought there would be a need for a permit because it's just gravel. And for everything else we've done that over the years. We've got permits and paid the fees and had the city involved. And so that one we honestly didn't think required that because it's just gravel. It's not a hard surface. We don't, it's not affecting the storm drainage. So we're good citizens there in Hubbard. We like to play by the rules. But
you guys open the can of worms now. If it's not permitted, right, and it's a parking lot, and you guys set up the bumpers and so on, it's a whole can of worms. Even if you don't go forward with the with your building, I would imagine Mike and the city might be reaching back out to you for that parking lot. So,
well, my question was, how do people actually submit an application for a gravel parking lot? Is that something that the city? I
don't think so. That would be a great question for Holly, but I've never seen anything in the code, and I've read it.
why we didn't think that it would be required, because I don't know. I mean, you're telling me that years ago we should have gone in and asked for to put in a gravel lot to park construction vehicles. I honestly, I was not aware that that was something that required.
You said you were part of the original plan and building all that. You know, when you submitted something to the city, it has certain criteria, right? Certain parking spaces and so on and so forth, right? Now it's evolved a little bit. It's a gravel area. I agree with you. But, you know, by your own pictures and by the Google pictures, it's a parking lot. People park.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there's any way around it, I'm in, Manny, 100%. I'm for following the rules, but if common sense is going to win, if there's a way out, I'm for it. But again, it's a parking lot. It's not been permitted, you know, and it's just what it is. Rules are rules. I hate to say that, but not rules are rules, but we all have to follow the same code. And the city has been, it's been doing great since I've been here for a dozen years. Things are improving, and you know, we've got the furniture place now, and although they have no pavement in the back of the building, but I'm sure there's nobody parking. They're just storage and so on. So, but anyway, a side note.
Right,
so,
in the building just north of that, it also has a big, huge gravel parking in the back, right?
Yeah, but they have a lot of equipment there, so that fits the criteria that the city has.
Okay.
You're talking about the excavating place down there?
Right, just north of the furniture store. They have a huge area.
And that makes sense. They've got a lot of equipment. They got big dump trucks and all that, and they got a big parking lot in front for their employees. That makes sense per our criteria. Again, it fits exactly what Holly or what our code brings up. So anyway, I think that's all I have to say. If anybody else wants to chime in.
Well, I'd only make one comment. If we look at the 05 site plan, that area was deemed future parking or future warehouse. And so they could have went in and gravelled it for the future warehouse and ended up parking on it, which is kind of what happened. And there's not to say that that won't become a warehouse down the road. So we've just made a huge improvement and then we tear it out to put in a warehouse. It just, the original approval was for a pad for a warehouse. That's just my comment.
No, it's a great point. But again, it falls back to the, what are we using it today for? You know, what's the, it's just common sense. If we let everybody do well in the future, and I know this better than anybody, I'm in the construction industry, it just won't happen.
Well,
in a lot of cases, in the higher number than not cases.
Okay. Well, I will. Let me talk with some people. Maybe if we could. So commercial vehicles can park there, is what I'm understanding. But if we find somewhere else for the people to park their personal vehicles, you would be good with that? If I can show it, if we can show adequate parking for the employees when they come in to park their personal vehicles and not park in that area, would that qualify then as a commercial vehicle? And not
Manny, go in, submit whatever you want, and let's look at it. And then I can only say if it's qualified or not if we see it. You know what I mean? I couldn't jump the gun now and say, yeah, it's going to work. You know, and then you come back and say that, you said yes. Submit it and we'll see. And I'm on your side. I want you not to put a parking lot there. I don't. Just find something that works. And with Holly and Vicky and Mike. At least on my part, I'll help you. Well, we'll do as best, whatever criteria we can follow.
The reason I bring that up is we have some land to the northwest that perhaps would be easier to pave and not be so costly, that we could add some parking over at that end of the property. And maybe we could find a way to make this work. I'll just, we'll see. We'll kick it around. We'll come up with something, and we'll work with staff and see if we can all come up with something that everybody's comfortable with.
Chair,
Yes, Holly.
I would,
Oh, you broke up again.
Last thing you said was I would.
if the applicant is
Can't hear you.
proposing to just plan, can you hear me now?
Okay, go ahead. Start over again, please.
If the applicant is proposing to change their site plan, we need to either make a decision on what was presented tonight or continue this public hearing to give them more time. I do not want this negotiation to continue at the staff level. That would not be appropriate. You have a site plan in front of you, and the Planning Commission needs to either continue the public hearing or make a decision on what you have tonight.
Holly, could I ask you a question? I think you've been around long enough for this.
Yes.
When we approved First Student over off of it's Whiskey Hill Road, we ran into the same issue with asking them, were they required to pave where the buses are parked, or did we give them a variance on that?
The bus parking was considered bus storage, and they had an employee parking lot that they paved for all of their employees.
Okay.
So they're two separate lots.
Yeah, I just pulled it up on Google Maps. So, but there where the buses are parked, that's not pavement, that's gravel then now.
Correct. But I will say what I've learned from city engineers over the years, that gravel has a very similar stormwater runoff curve to pavement. And so when they graveled the bus parking, they had to grade it and put in storm drainage catchments. So it's still controlling their stormwater runoff there.
I don't dispute that. But that's the most recent one that I could remember that we dealt with. And it's really not apples to apples. It's different, but I know we went back and forth on that. But I appreciate the information. So.
I move to continue the conversation until whenever Manny submit. Well, I move that we continue the conversation next meeting. Unless Mr. Wellman and Manning want to do something different. If we want, I would say that it's up to you guys what you guys want to do, or we can actually, at this point, we could vote on a yay or nay on what you've submitted on. You can submit something new down the road, or if you want to continue, it's up to you.
Okay, point of order, Chair. Where are we at on the agenda? Are we to the point of a motion? Because we still have applicants, interjecting. Are we to the point where that part of it is done and we can move on to a decision up or down, or where are we at?
Well, we just asked about if there was any, would the Planning Commission like to have the applicant address any of the testimony? Then the next part would be, before I close or continue the public hearing, are there any additional questions from the Planning Commission or staff or anyone? As a reminder, once I close the hearing, only commissioners and staff may speak. So,
Well,
and that's,
I would say that we very much want to add this addition to that small warehouse, and so we are good with all of those recommendations on there but one. And so if we can continue it till next month, I don't want you guys to I don't want you to not go for it because of one issue, of one item. So if it would make sense, maybe if we can find some parking, if it's okay to park those commercial vehicles there and not employee vehicles, then I think we have enough room there to add some paved parking for the employees on another end of the property. If that's the case, I would ask, give us another month. Let's put off a decision for another month and let's work on it. Because we do want to add that, right now it's hard to get materials, and we want the capability of storing some additional insulation. We're just going to put insulation in there, and we want to be able to have more on hand because it's really hard to get right now. And so that's why we're adding this addition. So I would ask you to consider that.
One minute. Sorry about that. I just lost my place. Okay. So do we have any additional questions before I close? The Planning Commission staff Planning Commission staff are the only ones that can do it once I close the meeting. The public testimony. Okay. Hearing nothing, public testimony is now over. I will close the public hearing at 8:22 p.m. I will now entertain discussion on the application and/or a motion.
Motion to continue.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing to next month. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion's adopted 3-1. So we'll continue this next month. And now, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved, Glenn.
Second.
Okay.
Third.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we're adjourned.
All right. Thanks, guys. Sorry
Have a
if I
good
was.
night.
You too.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
welcome aboard.
Okay.
Thank you.